Have you ever wondered how to locate bass based on their seasonal patterns? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to know before you head out to the lake or reservoir the fish should be in this area and doing this? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Hi there, and welcome to the Bass Fishing Life. I'm your host, Steve Rogers. This week we're going to be breaking down seasonal patterns. A lot of people talk about springtime fishing, summer fishing. Well, depending where you're at in the country, those all mean different things. But if you base your seasonal patterns off of water temperature, that knowledge can be applied to any lake or any reservoir across any part of the country. So we're going to focus on water temperature and what that means as far as our seasonal patterns. The first one that I want to talk about is what is a winter pattern. That is going to be anything like 48-degree water temperature or less. When bass are in a winter pattern, they're not going to be up in tributary arms and these shallow places in lakes and reservoirs. They're going to be back out on main lake areas, and most likely they're going to be holding on more vertical structure, whether those bluff banks, 45-degree banks. The bass are going to want to be able to change depth quickly without moving too terribly far. In the wintertime, bass are often suspended. They won't relate to that structure or cover as much as they would, let's say, in the spring or the fall. So you're going to want to focus on really reading those electronics, but target bluff banks, target 45-degree banks, some of the deeper parts and the more vertical bottom composition that you can find. Water clarity makes a big difference. If the lake or reservoir you're fishing is really clear, those winter bass might be 50 to 60 feet. If the water is a little more stained or muddy, they're going to be shallower than that. But when the water temperature is 48 degrees or less, we're going to consider that winter time fishing, and they're going to be main lake, steeper vertical bluff banks, 45-degree banks. The next seasonal pattern that we're going to talk about is the one that most anglers get excited about, and that is the pre-spawn. The pre-spawn mode, or the pre-spawn seasonal phase, we're going to focus on that 48 to 55-degree temperature range. This is when the bass are going to start moving out of those main lake areas on the natural lakes and reservoirs and start to seek out places in tributary arms, shallower coves. They're going to move up out of that deep water and stage right where that shallow water starts. They're thinking about spawning. They want to be in that pre-spawn mode. The younger male fish, or I should say the male bass, are going to come up and start fanning out beds. The larger females are going to hold off in that deeper water until the actual spawn occurs. But pre-spawn, 48 to 55-degree water temperature. The time of year when the most record fish are caught, or when our personal best is most likely to happen, is in the spawn. That is going to be 55 to 70 degrees. Now, smallmouth will spawn in a little bit cooler water. Largemouth are going to be closer to that 70-degree temperature. But if your lake or reservoir is in 55 to 70 degrees, especially getting closer to that 60 to 70, they are definitely going to be in the spawn mode, and you're going to want to really focus on the shallower parts of a lake or reservoir. Now, once again, with that said, water clarity makes a big difference. If you're fishing a very clear lake or reservoir, those fish might spawn in 15 to 20 feet. If your lake or reservoir is dirty water, stained water, then they might be up shallower than 5 feet. But the spawn stage is going to be 55 to 70-degree water temperature. The next stage is one that oftentimes confuses or befuddles lots of anglers. We just had the spawn phase where there were a lot of big fish up shallow. You can focus on that visible cover, and there's just, it seems to be a lot of fish to be had. And then summer kicks in. We're going to talk about that summer phase is usually that 75 to 90 plus degree water temperature, and the fish are no longer, the majority of them are shallow. The majority of them have moved back into main lake areas, out of the tributaries, out of the river arms, and are hitting those main lake places again, very similar to what they did in the wintertime. Now remember, with that said, there are always shallow fish that can be found, but the majority of the fish in a natural lake or reservoir, especially some of the larger lakes and reservoirs, those fish are going to move in the summertime back out of the tributaries and into the deeper parts of the main lake. These are things when your main lake points are going to do really well. Largemouth, smallmouth will start to really focus on your shad schools, those types of things, and you may find suspended fish way offshore. They may not be relating to any shoreline cover or structure whatsoever. They might be just following these big balls of shad around the lake. So the summertime can be challenging, but just know that the fish are still there. They group up oftentimes, but the majority of them are going to pull out of the shallow water areas and into some deeper places, very similar to where they were in the wintertime. The last seasonal pattern that we're going to talk about is the fall pattern. So that is when our summer temperatures start to get down below that 75 degree mark, 70 degrees, clear down to about that 55 degree water temperature mark. That can be considered your fall fishing. During this time, a lot of those bass are going to move back into the shallow tributaries, back up into the river arms, really start to feed up, get fat. Fall fishing can be feast or famine as well. They're going to be oftentimes grouped up. They're still in very much those summer types of schools and groups, but they're going to start moving from those main lake areas back up into shallow tributaries or creek arms. Now you may be asking, Steve, what about rivers? You focus just on lakes and reservoirs. River fishing is different because everything is focused on, or everything is determined by the current. So we're going to get into seasonal patterns in river fishing in another video. Now this particular video is all about water temperature and the seasonal patterns, winter, pre-spawn, spawn, summertime, and fall fishing. We are going to get into more depth as far as what types of lures to use, what types of presentations to use, and where to actually look on a topographical map in other videos. This one I just wanted to give you a rough guide for those different seasonal patterns, so before you head to the water or as the pages of a calendar turn, you can realize it's not so much based on month, but it's based on water temperature. I hope that these basic tips help you out. Make sure that you drop a comment below with any other questions that you may have. And don't forget to encourage somebody today. You never know what a difference that you're going to make in their life.